It is time once again for the podcast, which is all about the world of marketing on television through TV shopping networks and infomercials. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Sean Wilsey, and for 29 years I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, generating billions of dollars in sales. And now I want to be your guide into this world, explaining how it works, why it works, what doesn't work, and introduce you to the people who are making it the success that it is today. Because it is still a very successful world, that of the cable shopping networks, television shopping networks, but also the world of infomercials. Not what it used to be by any stretch of the imagination, but that is going to be our focus today as we begin taking a look at infomercials. We've talked a lot about television shopping, cable shopping networks, the traditional means of buying on television, but actually the infomercial is probably the more famous, some might argue infamous means of marketing on television. Infomercials done right, and I don't even know if done right is the way to phrase it, first off, they can generate billions of dollars. Millions anyways, hundreds of millions of dollars. And they can make stars out of their hosts, for good or ill. TV shopping networks don't necessarily turn their hosts into stars, and the reason is simple. You have, let's just use QVC as an example, even though they're in 100 million homes, they're on one channel. Maybe they have two channels in your city. And in order to see it, you have to make a concerted effort to put on QVC. An infomercial can pop up anywhere, on any channel, and in a 1,000-channel universe, that's a lot of options. They can turn up any time, usually overnights more often than any other time. So they're a lot more prevalent. And so a successful infomercial will be shown a lot of places, and it will make a star out of its host and the people involved. And today we're going to look back at the 1990s, which really is where the infomercial took off. And we're going to look at three of the people that did become household names, even if I say their names and you don't know who they are. I'm talking about Mike Levy, Donald Lepre, and Kevin Trudeau. You would recognize their faces. I think you'll recognize their voices as we listen to clips of some of their infomercials and talk about what worked. And in two of the cases anyways, what worked, I don't want to say too well, but they pushed the limits and had some interesting endings to their careers. Well, one for sure an ending, the other question mark, and we'll save that for the end. Mike Levy is the first one we want to focus on, who from 1989 until 1997 had a very successful career with his series of quote-unquote amazing discoveries. So you will remember these if you watched TV back then. It was really one of the first good efforts in infomercials. The infomercial didn't come around until 1984. Up until 1984, there were some pretty strict regulations as to what you could and couldn't do on television from the FCC, and they eliminated regulations to govern the commercial content of television in 1984. So that meant commercials could run a full 30 minutes. The birth of the infomercial. And at first, they didn't even have to disclaim that what you were watching was paid television. It could be a blatant infomercial, but there was no disclaimer saying this is paid content, and what you're watching is trying to sell you something, which in a later show, we're going to look at how that is happening in daytime TV and talk shows today. But anyway, another show. So Mike Levy and his amazing discoveries was the first successful one. He, prior to this, was a copywriter for mail advertising. Again, not a lot of mail advertising going on anymore, M-A-I-L, just to clarify. And he created this concept, along with his partners, called Amazing Discoveries. It looked like a talk show. Now, remember, the talk shows of the early 90s, the Geraldos, the Oprahs, the Phil Donahues, had the audience as kind of the whole studio. And then you'd have one guest sitting on a stage, and the host was in the audience for most of it. This is the introduction to one of his Amazing Discoveries shows that I'm going to play for you. And this one is all about the human calculator. Human calculator. Listen to the introduction. This screams early 90s talk show. But you're about to watch an infomercial.
Coming up next on Amazing Discoveries, we'll show you how to turn on the human calculator in you. Now, here's the host of Amazing Discoveries, Mike Levy.
Welcome.
I just realized it's Levy. I've been saying Levy. In preparation for the show, I've been saying it's Levy. I apologize. Anyway, so he's now walked out, crowd all around him, screaming like a studio audience. He's wearing a sweater, very early 90s sweater. Think of the guy who hosted Supermarket Sweep back then, always wore the colorful sweater. Same kind of look.
I want you to meet a friend of mine who is fondly referred to as the human calculator. You'll see why. Scott Flansburgh. What is 497 times 35? What is that?
17,395.
Right on the button. Isn't that fun? But there's more. Scott, here's a hard one. What's 4,379 divided by 7? What is that?
625.57142.
Wow, right out to all those decimal points.
And he had a calculator, so Mike was entering this in. But again, it roped people in. People were new to this, thinking, oh my God, because unless you watch the disclaimer at the very front of the show or the very end of the show, you did not know that this was paid content. You did not know that money was changing hands between the show and the television station, many times on a per-inquiry basis, which we'll explain some of these terms as we go on, because they didn't disclaim it. There was no graphic on the screen. Today, the rules have hit where you have to disclaim a little bit more. This is paid content and so forth and so on. And so they went on and they did their little interview, and then eventually it turned into sales. Now, I'm going to jump to a different episode of Amazing Discoveries and play this because this is so cliche, early 90s infomercial. It's for a car wash. And this one bottle of car wash washed a car 4 times. Same set, same studio. It's just now they had a car on the set and 2 British gentlemen.
The price, well, that's up to John.
All right, John, how much?
Mike, you've told me already you're impressed.
I'm
Enough
impressed.
to do 4 cars, just $29.95.
That is fabulous.
For one bottle? Come on.
You warned me.
Go on.
Researched and developed by Ari. It's a vinyl and leather cleaner. We'll use it in the car and the home. We'll show you in section 2.
Good.
$9.95's worth of value, absolutely free. Another $40 worth, $40.
What they're doing here is what we call in the trade an add-on game. So we gave you the value, told you what it is, here's the price, and it's kind of cute how the crowd cheers. Oh, but some are booing, not good enough. So they're adding on to the value. This is classic television shopping. Goes back to the earliest days. Home Shopping Club was very good at this in their early days. So that is what we call an add-on game. So now they've given you more.
John, it's not me.
It's got to be good.
Amazing Discoveries viewers demand
This
a good deal.
I don't believe. But forewarned, it's forearmed. The amazing chamois. Use it on the car and in the home. Again, in section 2, we'll show you lots of uses. Another $10 worth of value.
Another $10 value.
Absolutely free.
Adding in.
$50 worth, Mike, for just $29.95.
Okay. It can't get any better than that, can it? Come on.
We're almost there.
Look at all that.
We're almost there. You've got to give us more.
Excuse me 1 second. Ian?
No, wait a minute.
Now the 2 British guys step
Ian's
aside to
stay out of
talk.
this. Come on, you've got to give us more, John.
Michael.
What?
Trust me.
Yes.
English.
Trust me.
Read my lips. After this, there is no more. Ian, make the man the
We'll see.
deal. He can't
Mike,
refuse.
$29.95, 10 and 10, $50 worth. Advertise it for us. Tell your friends. That's what we're here for, to advertise Ari. There's another $29.95's worth.
So he just added
Free of
in
charge.
another bottle of the car
$80
wash.
value, John, it's up to you.
Michael,
How much?
we've got to be there. $29.95.
That's a good deal. $80 for $29.95.
Oh, it's so cliche. It's so classic. But again, it works. It's the kind of thing, it draws people in, and they sold millions of dollars worth of this. But again, under the guise of a talk show. And eventually, rules started changing. You had to have more disclaimers that this is paid content. But he had a very successful career. And in the whatever happened to, sadly, in 2003, we lost Mike to cancer after a brave battle with cancer. And his geniusness was, again, just coming up with this, let's spoof a talk show. Also, he was the one that was famous for acting stupid. If someone came on with a product that was a problem solver, he'd say, oh, yeah, well, I'm used to doing this. And, he'd show how he was used to cleaning his car a certain way. This works brilliant. It's like, oh, Mike, you moron. There's an easier way. So that is one of the 3. The next one is Don Lapre. I'm not even going to introduce this segment other than to start playing a little bit of Don Lapre.
The second way to make money that I stumbled onto was placing tiny classified ads in the newspaper. If you create and test one tiny classified ad in the newspaper that makes just $30 to $40 profit in a week, it could make you a fortune. Because the secret is learning how to take that one tiny classified ad that just made $30 to $40 profit in a week, and to realize that you could now take that same exact ad and place it in up to 3,000 other newspapers around the country.
In the span of 38 seconds, he uttered the phrase tiny classified ad 3 times. That's repetition, and that is a classic sales technique. He's already drilled into your head tiny classified ad. I can do that. That's easy. Now, this also, by the way, becomes very dated. The concept of placing a tiny classified ad today is foreign to everyone, and rightfully so. I honestly should do some research into this for a future episode. I would love to know who's still buying, because there has to be the demographics out there for who's still buying a traditional newspaper. I think that would be interesting. But anyway, so he's using repetition to get into your head, tiny classified ad. And if you were alive in the 90s, you know exactly who I'm talking about. You can picture him. You can picture the waves in the background, because that's the other thing that he did. And again, a lot of marketing genius goes into these things. That implies wealth. Beach scenes imply wealth and success. I love you, Canada, but you will never see an infomercial shot among the snowbanks, because that is not an aspirational thing. Skiing's a great hobby. People love it. But a beach vacation, beach living, Florida, tropics, that's more associated with wealth. And so what he's doing is using that background, because right behind him, it's waves coming into the shore, to imply wealth and success. So there's a lot of very subtle things they do in these infomercials, and that's why we're going to break some of these down on more episodes so we can talk more about the marketing aspect. But I just wanted to introduce you to these 3. I'm going to play just a little bit more of Don Lepre.
That's what I did. I found tiny classified ads that made $30 to $40 profit in a week, and I placed those ads in around 1,000 other newspapers around the country. That's how I generated over $50,000 a week out of my 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay, there's the other one that he started repeating, because anybody that knows this infomercial knows he talked about his tiny 1-bedroom apartment, tiny classified ads, and tiny 1-bedroom apartment, because the person watching this at home, and I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment at the time, and I remember thinking, wow, that's me. He's trying to relate to the individual. He's using psychological techniques to say, I was you. I was living in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. I was the person who was struggling. And then I started placing tiny classified ads. And it builds up and builds up. Now, there's a few little hidden things, of course, that he didn't tell you about with his infomercial. Because later on, after the newspaper started to suffer, he started doing the same thing, but through websites, he would say, by building websites. He had a whole team behind the scenes that, backing up, the ads were for products that his company would provide you at an inflated price. So he was making money off of you having to buy these products to sell in these tiny classified ads. So there's a lot of behind-the-scenes money, because the deal is $39.95 to get this information on how to place the tiny classified ads. But there was a lot of behind-the-scenes shenanigans. He wound up actually... I mentioned a sad ending. This is the sad ending to his life, because he wound up trying to sell a miracle vitamin, a vitamin that was going to do all these things. And we got a whole show on vitamins and marketing coming up later on. And unfortunately, he pushed the limits, went too far with it, and was waiting trial for fraud. He got 220,000 victims. Again, it's so easy to fall victim to this. Don't think this can't happen to me. 220,000 people, bilked them out of $52 million. He was charged with 41 counts of conspiracy and mail fraud and wire fraud and promotional money laundering and transactional money laundering. And while he was awaiting trial, in jail, committed suicide. And so, that's a sad ending. And, I'm sorry to see that his life ended like that. There is someone else who is sitting in jail, serving his term, that I don't think we've seen the last of yet. His name is Kevin Trudeau. Kevin Trudeau was a genius at marketing himself and marketing to begin with. But this man, I swear to you, in another life, he had to have been the leader of a cult. He has that personality. He has that charisma that draws people in. Some people, they say, are natural-born salesmen. He's one of them. But again, he's one who pushed the limits. This is a clip from his book, Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. And therein, I think, lies the potential future genius of Kevin Trudeau. This is just a little clip. It's a book, which, by the way, great marketing, because now he's not selling a vitamin or something where he's making a direct medical claim. He's not saying, buy this vitamin and it does this. That's what got Jim Baker in trouble, and we have a future show on that. He's saying, buy this book and learn about these natural cures, the ones they don't want you to know about. What I'm going to play is audio from about the first minute of the infomercial. Let's listen to Kevin Trudeau.
I got to let people know, if you're watching right now, if you have any disease or are concerned about any disease that you...
Now listen to this list that he's about to read. And he's looking straight at the camera as he delivers this. So he's looking at you. He's looking straight at you.
Or someone in your family may have, whether it be cancer or heart disease or diabetes, if you have acid reflux, blood clots, varicose veins, asthma, arthritis, migraine headaches, pain of any kind, insomnia, any type of disease, you need to pay attention, because there are natural cures for virtually every disease out there.
How many items on that list did you tick off? So he's basically saying this book is for everyone. But if I just look straight at the camera and say this book is for everyone, that doesn't pierce the heart. What he just did, looking straight into the camera, and you're looking right at him, is he basically pierced your heart. And he didn't just say if you suffer from, and read his list, but if anyone you care about. Okay, how can you refuse to buy this book? And something like 500,000 people didn't refuse. By the way, it's still for sale on Amazon. You can still buy this book. And here again is the other genius of Kevin Trudeau. Because there are watchdog groups out there, the FDA, the FTC, that can go after you. If he's on TV, and again, I'm using vitamins as the comparison just because it's the easiest one, and I'm saying this vitamin can cure this. Again, that's what got Jim Baker in trouble when he had a woman on who was making a claim that this silver solution is what it was. And didn't even say, but implied was going to cure the coronavirus. What he's doing is getting you to buy a book. That goes right around the laws. He's just saying, go to the store, because you could get him at Barnes & Noble, or call the 800 number, more money in his pocket, and buy the book. And then learn about these natural cures that they don't want you to know about. So he's not saying that, and I'm just making this up, niacin cures cancer. But on page 47 of the book, niacin cures cancer. So he's going around it. He's going around the laws. Well, that worked for a while. But he also found himself in trouble. And by the way, he got to the New York Times bestseller list with his book. He was sentenced to a decade behind bars in March 2013 for, but was it misrepresentation? This is what I'm trying to remember what it was. Let me see actually if I can find it here quickly. He sold more than 850,000 copies of the book. Criminal contempt in November for defying... Oh, he defied a court order. That's right. Because he had a court order barring him from running false ads about a weight loss book. The weight loss cures they don't want you to know about. And despite the order, he aired the infomercial 32,000 times, according to prosecutors. Anyway, so he is now scheduled for release in May of next year. May 2022, he's scheduled for release. I predict we're going to see him again. I predict he's going to have a very successful career. He's going to be more careful about what he says. But I think he's going to make a comeback. Now, I'm not by any means trying to get political or anything here. But we're living in a time where there's a fear of they, using air quotes. And now he can blame his prison sentence because they tried to silence me. I wrote the books about the things they don't want you to know about. So what happened? Well, they silenced me. And he can go on infomercials again, and he can say, I served my time, but I'm back here for you. I'm still fighting the good fight. So I predict we've not heard the last of Kevin Trudeau. I think we're going to hear from him again. I've met him a couple times back very early in my career, and I have personal opinions on the gentleman. I'm not going to say them right here. He's got some deep pockets still. The book's still selling. It's on Amazon right now. In fact, they updated it for 2014. So it's still there. You can still go on Amazon, and you can still buy the book. So there's money still being made off of that book. So I think we'll be hearing from Kevin Trudeau again. But I mean this. We're going to go into, on a future date, a lot more, because we're just scratching the surface of infomercials and the marketing genius that they use on the infomercials. Because, again, we just scratched the surface here of both the obvious and the inobvious. There's a lot of psychological selling that is worked into these infomercials. And so we're going to go into that, and how the televangelists started to take advantage of some little holes and loopholes in the laws. And I think Jim Baker last year kind of ended that for most of the televangelists. But a lot more to come, and growing list of special guests who are going to be joining us very shortly. I want to get a few more episodes under my belt here before we start working in special guests. But, man, there's a long and very impressive list, dare I say so myself. I hope you'll check me out at my day job as a host for the Shop LC television shopping network. You can find me Wednesday through Saturday between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and then again from 3 to 5 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at Shawn Wilsey, ShawnWilsie, and on Instagram as SWilsey. Thank you for downloading this edition of Are We on the Air? This has been a King Bobby production.